I went from 8 sales in March to 27 sales in April. In just 1 month, I started getting sales almost every day. In this video, I'm going to break down exactly what changed for me, including the one shift I made that made the biggest impact, the mistakes that I'm still making, and a few real sales so you can see how this plays out. Because it wasn't just listing more, it was fixing what I was listing. If you're new here, my name's Laura. I was a full-time reseller for 2 years before I stepped away and went back to a 9-to-5 and got my MBA. And now I'm rebuilding my reselling business from scratch. But this time I'm really treating it as a business, not a side hustle. 6 weeks ago, I posted a video where I recapped my 30-day listing experiment on Poshmark. I listed one item every single day for a month. And since then, I've really doubled down on this, and the results are starting to look very different. So here's exactly what happened. In March, I made 8 sales, which was about $420 in revenue. In April, I made 27 sales, which was just over $1,000 in revenue. And although I'm excited that I cracked the $1,000 in revenue goal that I had set for myself this month, the most important number here, in my opinion, isn't the revenue, it's actually the sell-through rate. If you missed my last video, I talk a lot about sell-through rate, so go check that one out. But the reason that it matters here is that in March, I sold through about 18% of my inventory, and in April, I sold through about 40% of my inventory. That means that almost half of the items that I had available throughout the month sold. So I think that the key difference here isn't just that I had more inventory. It's that a much higher percentage of my inventory was actually desirable enough to sell quickly. Now, I used to think that growing on Poshmark really just came down to listing more. And I still do think to an extent that that's a huge part of it. But honestly, it really comes down to listing better and then supporting that with consistency. So consistently listing better items. There are 3 main things that I changed over the course of the last month, and they do not all matter equally. So what I want you to be able to take away from this video is 3 things that you could try to change in your business. But if you don't have time to do all 3 of these, I'm ranking them in order of importance and what moved the needle the most for me. The biggest change by far for me was how I source inventory. So instead of just picking up things that I think will sell or going based off of anecdotal experience that I remember, I built a spreadsheet including an inventory intelligence system that tracks what actually sells based on my personal sales data over time, by brand, by category. And this is what I use every single time I source now. So when I'm sourcing, I'm not just guessing. I'm looking for patterns, like what brands consistently sell within 30 days of being listed, what categories sit for months versus which ones turn over quickly. And at this point, when I'm sourcing, I have honestly become ruthless. I am only picking something up if it meets 2 criteria, ideally both, but possibly one or the other. Number 1, I believe it will sell quickly within 30 days. Or number 2, if I believe it will sell for at least $50. And ideally, I'm looking for pieces that will do both, but if it will do neither, then it's definitely not something I want to pick up anymore. For example, I recently picked up 2 of these Selkie bubble top blouses. These were both in a size 2X, and they sold so fast. I actually paid up for these. I paid $35 for these, and I listed them both at $110. Both of these sold within 4 days of being listed, one for $100 on eBay and the second one for $85 on Poshmark. Between the 2, I made almost $90 in profit in under 5 days. And these are the types of items that I'm looking for now, things that will move quickly for a great margin. And this is the exact kind of thing that I'm tracking in my spreadsheet. What are the brands and categories and styles that are selling fast at strong price points? Now compare that to something like this Athleta exercise skirt. I picked this up for $7 at Goodwill because this is the type of piece that a few years ago when I was reselling full time, I would have been able to sell consistently and quickly for between $35 and $40. I loved selling Athleta. It was one of my favorite brands to resell. And I'm still kind of wrapping my head around the fact that it's just not going to command as good of a margin as it used to. I do still think it sells well as a brand, but it's just not going to sell for as much as it used to. This one sat for 2 months. I eventually cross-listed it to eBay, and I got an offer for $15. At that point, I only had it listed for like 25. So I accepted it because I just wanted to move on from this piece. I felt like it wasn't really fitting into either criteria for me at that point, because it wasn't selling fast and it certainly wasn't going to sell for a good margin at that point. So I took the $15. I ended up making about $5 in profit. So it wasn't a total loss, but it certainly was not worth my time. And this is exactly the shift that I've made. I'm no longer buying just based on vibes or what used to sell. I'm focusing on buying and sourcing things that will sell right now for a good profit. And that's why my sell-through rate is improving and why it jumped from 18% in March to 40% in April, because I'm just not wasting time on things that are going to sit for a long time. So as I mentioned, the spreadsheet has been really instrumental for me in helping to grow my business and improve my sourcing considerably. I actually mentioned this spreadsheet in my last video, and I asked people to comment if they were interested, and I had over 30 people comment on that video and saying they were interested. So I am in the process of turning this into something that you can actually use. It's not quite ready yet, but if you want to join the waitlist so that you're the first one to know about it when it is, I'm going to leave a link in the description down below where you can just add your email, and I will shoot you an email once it's all ready to go. Getting into the second biggest change, the thing that I think had the second most impact in my business in April was increasing my listing volume, but probably not exactly in the way that you're thinking. So last month in March, I was listing one item every day, and I have a whole video series about that challenge that I was doing. In April, I increased that to 2 items most days. So I listed a total of 53 items in April and I sold 27. So even though I listed 53 new items, I only actually added 26 net new items to my existing inventory because 27 items have already sold. I wasn't just piling up listings, I was turning them over, which is key. Obviously, listing more does 2 things. Number 1, it gives you more opportunities to make a sale. If you have more items available, you have more chances for someone to buy one of those items. In my case, in April, 16 of the 27 sales that I made were things that I listed in April. And if I hadn't listed them, I wouldn't have made those sales, obviously. One example of a great sale that I made same month were these Free People Lila trousers. I listed these and they sold within 3 days. I sold them for $55 and I made $37 in profit. The second thing that listing daily does for you is that it shows the platform that you're an active seller. And platforms like Poshmark want to promote sellers who list consistently, ship quickly, and have good ratings and reviews, meaning that the items that they're listing are as described. And obviously, they also want to promote buyers that have listings that actually sell. In fact, in a recent round of seller updates on Poshmark, they made an announcement about this where they said that they are going to start sort of quality ranking sellers and showing listings more higher up in the results from sellers who are more active and more consistent. So it's always been important, but it is more important now than ever before. But definitely remember that listing more only really matters if the pieces that you're listing are good. If you're just listing bad inventory faster, you're really just creating more of a problem for yourself. Now, real talk, would I love to be able to list more than 53 items in a month? Yes, absolutely. And I'm working towards building more capacity so that I can do that. But I just don't have the capacity to source and list much more than that right now of good quality inventory. So I'm really taking more of a slow and steady approach. I'm leaving a lot behind at the thrift store that I could buy and just list more and have more sales like that Athleta skirt, but I just don't feel it's worth my time, and I would rather save my energy for the pieces that really excite me and will turn over a better profit. Now, the third change, and I think that this might be controversial actually, because I feel like a lot of people put a lot more emphasis on this than I am going to right now, was cross-listing. So I started putting my inventory onto eBay and Depop in addition to Poshmark. A lot of people talk a lot about cross-listing. They swear by it. And while I do think it is really a useful tool, because I made 9 of my 27 sales on eBay and Depop, I do still rank it third out of the 3 changes I made, because even without those sales, I still grew my Poshmark sales alone from 8 sales in March to 19 sales in April. So yes, cross-listing increased my reach, But the other changes I made, like improving my inventory and sourcing and listing more consistently, are really what created the most shift in my business and helped spur more sales. So I kind of think of cross listing more as a multiplier, but it's not the foundation of the business. I've also started testing some cross listing tools and some AI tools to help speed this up and make these processes more efficient. And I will have some videos coming up about that because there's a lot to unpack there. Now I want to talk about a few mistakes that I've made because I think that you can learn just as much from mistakes, if not more, honestly, than you can from successes. So just because I've made a lot more sales in April does not mean that everything that I've listed sold. In fact, I have a lot of listings that I regret picking up, and I want to just give you a couple examples of those. For example, this Free People like slouchy sweater tunic situation. I actually bought this right after I had another great Free People sweater sale. So I had sold a cardigan cashmere sweater from Free People in 2 days for $52. I made like $35 in profit. So I was coming off of that sale and I was really excited about it. And then I saw this sweater in the thrift store. And in my mind, I was just like, okay, great, another Free People sweater. Definitely going to pick this up because I just had a great sale with the Free People sweater. But this one is not cashmere, and it's also not really a trendy or current style, which I definitely knew. But I ignored those signals because I was just excited in the moment, caught up. And it's been sitting in my closet for over 4 months now. And we're out of sweater season, and I don't think it's going to sell anytime soon. Another one is this Elizabeth and James Hadley dress. This one, it's just an older style that I don't really think has a lot of demand behind it. I don't think anyone's really searching for this brand. I picked this one up back in January when I was just getting back into reselling and sourcing, and I was like at the thrift store and didn't find a lot that day. And I think I was just kind of like, well, I'll just grab this one so that at least I have something to list. But it has been listed since January and it still hasn't sold, and it's gotten very minimal interest as well, which again, I kind of knew in my gut at the time, but sort of ignored those signals because I felt like, I need to just list something. At this point, I have dropped the prices on both of these pieces to about $25, and I'm just trying to move them out so that I can make room for and free up capital for better inventory. And honestly, this is something I'm getting more comfortable with that I was not comfortable with when I was reselling full-time the first time. I am happy now to just take small wins or even just break even on these items that I know now were bad buys. That way I can reinvest the money into better inventory. And another big thing I'm learning is that just because one piece sells well does not mean that an entire brand or entire category is working, and every single piece you need to check comps on. And also, if I have to convince myself to buy something, it's usually a sign that I shouldn't. Like, actually, my instinct is pretty good. And sometimes I just ignore it because I'm like, I need to at least just list something. But again, it's a mindset that I'm moving away from. I would rather list 50 amazing items in a month than 100 items and half of them are crap. So the biggest shift for me this month is just the understanding that daily sales are not something that you can force. They're something that happens when your pricing, your sourcing, and your activity level are all aligned. If your items are not being searched for, they're not going to sell no matter how many of them you list. And if you don't list new items, you won't have enough opportunities to sell, even if your items are all really great. From here, I am going to keep testing, especially around pricing and inventory mix, because I do think that I've started to slightly over-index on these really expensive pieces that I know will take longer to sell. And so I need to sort out I need to have a range of prices so that I can make those quicker sales in addition to those longer tail sales that are higher profit. So I still think that I have a lot of room to improve in those areas, and I'm going to continue testing and sharing my findings here on YouTube. And I'll also be sharing about the systems that I'm building behind the scenes to make this a business that is more efficient than the one that I ran the first time around. So definitely subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss any of these videos, and I'll see you next time. Bye.